welcome back to the channel, everybody. My name is Jessica M. Harris, and we are back with a brand new video. Listen, if you're new here, this channel is all about keeping you encouraged on your journey of faith, love, entrepreneurship, and everything in between. Don't forget to hit the like, share, and subscribe.
Can I just tell you that it's okay to not take on every single task all at once? And it's okay to pace yourself when it comes to accomplishing your goals. Like, it's okay. I get it. You may have this like big project, big dream, big idea in front of you. And you may be like, I'm about to do all of this right now. Listen, take a time out, right? And don't overwhelm yourself with that project right now, not at the capacity that you're looking at it. Instead, take some time to break it down into like bite-sized pieces. One, it helps you to make measurable goals. So this way you can start creating a timeline as to when you want to have the whole project done. And think about it when it comes to builders, right? People who build homes, they see this ginormous project, but no one sits there and starts, buying furniture and stuff like that when the foundation hasn't been. And the reason why I'm sharing this with you is because I am speaking from experience, right? Me here, hands up, right? That sometimes you can look at big visions, big dreams, big ideas, big projects, and you can get so excited, right, that you do one of two things. Well, three things technically, right? One, you can get stuck immediately because you're like, yo, there's no way that I have the capacity to do this, right? Number two, you could try taking all of it all at once. And then eventually you start feeling overwhelmed because you're like, there's no way I can handle this, X, Y, and Z. Or three, you can take the time to say, okay, this is the big vision. I know that in order for me to go from A to Z, I need to accomplish this, this, and this, right? And doing these steps are going to get me there. So I want to share with you today, quick tip, right? Take that big idea, take that big project, and begin to break it down. When you look at builders, right? I am not an architect. I am not a construction worker, but I have seen I've seen buildings come from the ground up, right? Where there was just a plot of land and then all of a sudden, supports and stuff. And then they started going from there. So I've been able to watch a lot. And oftentimes, right, more than not, what are they doing? They're working on their foundation first. No one is building a roof when they don't have the structure in place, right? So the same thing with you. If you know that you're about to make up this business, this nonprofit, this ministry, or anything of the sorts, start with that foundation first. And it's not even just like with projects, dreams, and ideas. That can also be with your home, right? That can be with you and your children. That can be with how you are treating yourself, right? Like you may have big goals and be like, okay, my goal is to treat myself, I don't know, to a trip to go to da-da-da place, right? And that could be like, okay, great, but how do you get there? Right? What are the steps that you take from right now to actually being able to do that trip, aim for that goal, right? Accomplish that goal. Like you have to look at the steps that are in between. And the beauty about breaking things down into pieces, right? Like small fractions and taking that time out to do so is that you're able to actually make calculated assessments, right? We want to be able to make goals that we can measure. So if I know that the goal in the next 30 days is to be able to save up 5,000, or rephrase, if the goal in the next 30 days is to make $5,000, right? Like say that's the goal, then that means that I need to do some steps before making that $5,000, right? What do I need to do? Well, I need to see, one, do I have a product to sell, right? Or a service to offer? Do I have a price point for those? Calculate it. How many people do I need to get that to be able to make sense, right? And then going from there. But there's not a way that I can say today's day one, in 30 days, I'm going to make $5,000 and then I do nothing in them 30 days, right? That's not going to produce something. You want to be able to know that whatever you're doing in that middle part is going to make sense. So this way, when it is time for you to get to the goal, you have the pieces in play. Now, for some people, $5,000 may be simple. For somebody else, it could be writing a book. For somebody else, it could be creating a play. It could be starting a business. It could be making a journal, like whatever, right? There's so many things we could do. But I'm using this as the example because all too often we'll get like this spark, this idea, and we just want to run with it. And I'm saying this because, like I just said a few minutes ago, right? That was me. Like there was ideas, y'all. I would get I would get ideas on projects and this and that and the third, and immediately it would be like go 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 go. What I wasn't always doing, sometimes I will, sometimes I wouldn't, it depended. But I caught myself doing this in like the spring into the summer, and I'll never forget. I like was sitting down in a room, and all of a sudden, like a whole idea of a project was coming to me, and I remember that. And this is why I share this, because at the moment that idea came to me, I remember I got up, I started writing out the checklist, and then I started to like create what was coming to me, and immediately I felt overwhelmed. Immediately I felt like this is too big. And what I needed to realize was that I went from start to go so quickly that I didn't give my chance an opportunity to really create the vision, to really create the plan. I wrote down a to-do list, but I wasn't writing out the vision of what it was going to be like. I wasn't writing out the schematics of a plan. And that's why I mentioned earlier when it comes to builders, because when you get a builder, right, who's going to create this like massive home for you or business or building, whatever the case is for you, when they get that plot of land, they have a sketch, right, of what the schematics are going to look like. Like they have a play by play on their blueprint of how these pieces are going to go, right? Like they know, like, okay, this is the plot of land here, and over here we're doing this, and over there we're doing that, and over here is this and that. And they understand the structure of how the pieces are going to look, right? Not just from the perimeter, but they understand the area and how those things are going to fit inside. And that sometimes, that was something that I missed earlier this year with one particular project. And I wanted to share that part because it's easy to be like excited and then all of a sudden not pay attention to something that's super important. And when I took that time to like pause, time out, like, time out, wait, I looked at myself and was like, yo, Jess, this is a really big project. And it was like, yep. Do you have, and I had to ask myself, do you have the capacity right now to take on this project? And the answer was no. And that's just being really honest for myself, like at that time. And the reality is that we can have dreams and visions, ideas, projects, and it doesn't mean that you can't do them. And it doesn't mean that God can't bless them. Like, that's not what I'm saying. But what you want to do is one, confirm it with God, right? But two, you also want to make sure that that's what you should be doing in that season, in that moment. Because there's things that I've gotten like ideas, but not every single idea was meant for that season. Like there was a season where I had the notion that I should write a book, and I kept wanting to write a book, but it just kept feeling like I tried and it wouldn't work. I tried, it wouldn't work. I tried. Like it was like this back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And I remember I was getting frustrated with myself because it was like nothing seems to be working. Like, God, I can't get this book out of me. And it didn't make sense because I really felt like I'm supposed to write a book, but it was like I couldn't get it to come out. Needless to say, I shifted gears. I created a blog instead, and the blog was flowing like water, like easily. I had the notion for a book, couldn't try that. I shifted gears. And when I shifted, when I pivoted into a different direction, there was a flow. And then a few months later, I was able to come back to the notion of having a book. But this time, it flowed. This time, and it wasn't even the same topic for the book that I was going to do the first time. It was an entirely different topic altogether. And I'm sharing this because sometimes we can, get an idea, it can drop down right now, and we think like it needs to be done immediately. And in some cases, it may be. In some cases, it could be a now thing. Everybody's different. I'm speaking from my personal experiences where what I thought was a now thing, I couldn't get it to shift. Like I couldn't get it to work. But I was able to catch the flow when I pivoted in a different direction. I was able to catch the flow when I pivoted in a different direction. I was like, oh my gosh, it's moving now, it's working now, it's flowing now, it's going now in the direction that was needed. So sometimes that's what may need to take place. Sometimes you may need to see the idea, take it to God and confirm, is it the way that you see it that is going to take place? Or is he showing you something because there's something about that he's going to have you do with it, right? Like you can get a design pattern and think it's going to be for a jacket and really it's for a t-shirt, or vice versa. You could be thinking that you got this book idea, and really that whole conversation could be, a podcast, or vice versa, right? You could think it's for a podcast and it's really for a book. Like it could be all types of stuff, right? And it doesn't mean that those pieces can't go back to being, the other item. Like I know that the book that I wrote a few years ago, it went from being a book, it ended up encouraging me and opening a door to creating a podcast that then opened the door to creating a business, right? So it was different pieces that came along the way, but it started off from, this one situation and then it expanded. So don't think that just because you're headed in this direction right now, that it can't come back. Like you could be looking like, man, but I really wanted to do a podcast. That's great. It doesn't mean that that's not going to happen. It simply could mean that maybe there's a door here that he's trying to open before you that you want to walk into. So this way you can begin getting into that groove again to doing the things that he needs you to do. And sometimes that's just, it's like, I don't want to say not keeping your options open, but I feel like we have to be open to the opportunities that God will present before us. That's the way that I want to word it. Because we could be thinking, it's supposed to look like this, right? And you're going in that direction. And God is like, if you would, open up that doorway, if you would open up, your perspective, you would see that there's room for more. Like if I'm doing this, that's narrowing, my view plan. But if I open it up like this, I could see more than what I was able to see before. And sometimes it's like that when it comes to like dreams and visions and projects and stuff like that. And that all comes with, getting your goals, making sure they're measurable for sure, making sure they're obtainable, making sure that you are building the pieces like the blocks and stuff like that as you're going along, so that way you can see them. And this isn't to say, that you can't jump into something and have it just work. Like there's people who probably have done exactly that, like where they're like, listen, I didn't even do all that. I just took or whatever and it just, expanded on its own. And that can happen. Like it can happen. I personally will say I don't doubt it because I wouldn't put anything past God. That's my perspective there. But at the same time, I also know that God calls us to be strategic. I also know that God wants us to use strategy. I also know that God wants us to do things in an order to build up foundations, because the foundations lead us to the growth that we're looking for, right? And that part comes with consistency. That part comes with, doing things in a way that he is guiding you to do it in. So that is all that I want to share with you today. It's really just, don't allow big projects to overwhelm you. Break them up into goals that are bite-sized so this way you can accomplish them. But also, don't be afraid of pivots, right? Don't be afraid if there's a different direction that he takes you in, because you never know what doors may honestly open up for you. And that's just being for real. Like you never know who may be looking for you being like, oh, I could use you to do X, Y, and Z. So that is all that I have to share with you all. I hope that helps. That is my tip for today. Peace and blessings to each and every one of you, and have an amazing day.